Known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR. It's that time of the week. Actually, it's a day early, but never mind. We want to talk about the state of the game in this country, state of our football nation. George Danikian, Josh Parrish. He's the man with the flying licence and the ability to run those controls. We're going to touch on so many elements of the stories that are impacting a whole bunch of different people right around the country and around the world, because there are some huge questions that are being asked. And let's start at the very beginning. It's been a humongously controversial day. We've been stunned, shocked, surprised by the latest word from the magnificent champion of Australian tennis, namely one Ash Barty. Philip McAuliffe said, the Barty's over, which I thought was a pretty good line. But here's something for Philip and for everyone else to chew on. I think I may have worked out what's at the whole middle of this. There's a very good reason. If you listen to the presser that she did with young Casey, what's Casey's, Devalacqua? Is it the correct pronunciation? Okay, Casey's a great friend of hers. They play doubles together. She knows very much of what's been going on in her life. Some people have been saying Ash has decided that she's going to, have a family. That may well be the case. But here's something I want to talk to you about. Josh Parrish, I'm thinking she's had a good look. And 12 months away, there's a Women's World Cup, the biggest single event for women down under. She's a fantastic striker. I'm thinking we need her alongside Sam Kerr. Would that not be quite something to behold?
I feel like you're trying to beat the AFL to the punch here, George.
Why not? The AFL has jumped on, Football Australia and soccer for the last 30, 40 years. Anything, soccer's done or football's done, they can do better. They only started a national football league because of the NSL. They were absolutely flabbergasted when soccer became the national football code in Australia. They thought, how dare they, jump the gun and upset our flow, our history? And I'm here to tell you that I'm happy to do that to the AFL again. I'm putting my hand up and saying, Ash Barty, should you need a conduit to the Matildas, we are happy at FNR to broker it. What a great story it would be.
Well, I mean, she said she was spent, but,
No. She said she had a number of goals to pursue. That suggests to me, do you think goals are near the net? Yeah, and wouldn't it be quite... Even if she's our ambassador for the Matildas, sure, I would wear that. I would wear it. Ash Barty leading the Matildas onto the opening contest of the Women's World Cup coming up next year. Oh, man, that would be quite something.
I think she could find a certain value alignment with the team as well.
Oh, on about 50 different levels. A tremendously worldly young woman who's done a power of good for Indigenous sportsmen and women.
And we saw the Matildas posing with an Aboriginal flag before their Olympics game as well.
Correct.
So.
And we've got some terrific Indigenous players in the Matildas side. And I just think, yes, we're having a bit of fun to start off the program, but now that would be quite something. And Ash, you know, we're not backward at FNR. If you need any assistance whatsoever, we're very happy to jump on board and assist where we can. And speaking of assistance, what's in a name, Josh Parrish?
Usually a jumble of letters.
Jumble of letters. But it's about ownership. It's about a branding exercise normally, isn't it? Because it separates you and me. You're Josh Parrish, or if I go the formal, Joshua Parrish.
I think I'm in trouble when you say that.
You sound like I sound like the headmaster, do I? Or just the chair? Look, I'm sitting on the chair. There are two Melbourne clubs. You would think they'd be able to get together and sort out the problem. We're talking about the Moreland Zebras and Brunswick Juventus, who also are Brunswick Zebras, right? And they've been at odds, almost having a good hot go, trying to say that the other is impeding or stepping on their territory. And I'm thinking, let's be adult. Let's work out what the problem is. Let's get to the nub of the challenge and address it. Let's not go to the courts. Let's not create more headlines than it's worth. One is the Moreland Zebras, a tremendously competitive team in the heart of what I know as Moreland, one of the biggest suburbs, full of diversity. And Moreland doing a tremendous job and has been building and building and building. They want to be major players. And, of course, the Brunswick Zebras, who are really Brunswick Juventus. So the fun and games, have a name that was chosen to actually unite as the reporter. Who's the reporter? Just we need to credit him because he's
Clay
written a good
Lucas.
piece. Clay Lucas, well done, Clay, in The Age. Deserving story. You've covered most of the information as needed. Now we need to get on the top of it. Why don't the two clubs come on FNR and let's talk about it? Let's offer them a platform on State of Our Football Nation. Come on and give us your best pitch. And at the end of the day, let's get to the bottom of it. Let's not drag it on, and especially through the courts. Because as a very good friend of mine, Nick Soklev from the Northern Motor Group, told me only the other day, he is mortified by what's happened in that tussle between the Preston Lions, that you're doing a tremendous a new program with them tomorrow, and good luck with that. And I notice you've put the Socceroos ball out front, because we're going to feature them as well.
Yes. So a new time slot for the Lions Den. Hence why we're doing the show today instead of the usual 5 p.m. Thursdays.
Okay.
Because, of course, we've got the Socceroos World Cup qualifier, 8:10 p.m. kickoff. Yep. We didn't want to go head-to-head with the Roos. And, that's...
Most astute.
That's a ratings war that I don't think Channel 10 wants a bar of. So we decided we would spare them.
See, already, if the Zebras are listening, they should just understand what's at play here.
Compromise.
Yeah, compromise.
So 7 p.m, we're doing the show live from BT Connor Reserve, the new pavilion.
Fantastic.
And we're inviting a live studio audience. So it might get a little rowdy. We're going to have some audience contributions. We're going to have the barbecue going.
When was the last time you did a program in front of a live audience?
It's been a while. I think we did one with the Knights at St Andrews Hotel, which was a great success. It was a real hit. Yeah. So hopefully get a similar atmosphere going. And
is Nick DeBarno going to be out there?
I don't think he will. It'll be myself and Pakua Frimpong as my assistant. And then we've got a lot of special guests from the club, including the captain of the women's team, Di Pikolovsky, and the senior men's captain, who you might be familiar with, George.
Yes.
The great Turkish international, Ersin Gulam.
Oh, my God. There you go. There you go.
Still loves the game.
Still love the... Oh, look.
And, he's 34. He's earned plenty of money in his career playing in China and so forth. He could have packed it in, or he could have gone to whichever NPL 1 club would have given him the biggest weekly paycheck, but he decided that he wanted to play for a team where he's going to have a good atmosphere at the games
and be competitive.
And, it's going to really mean something. And he's impressed everybody in pre-season, so much so that he was a near unanimous choice by the playing group in his first season at the club to wear the captain's armband.
Oh, congratulations to him. And he reminds me of another captain, another guy with a fierce determination to play and win, Rama Tafsandioglu, who did a tremendous job for us at South Melbourne in those days. And Rama, just would not take a backward step and would always lift everyone around him. And if the current captain of Preston is doing the same sort of thing, fantastic. That augurs well, suggests that there's a big season coming up.
Still playing Rama, by the way. I think he's at Nunawading again.
Is that right? Yeah. That just goes to show you that there's no quit in those boys. They just like to compete. And look, I can tell you, we've spoken to Peter Catholis, right? And Peter's about 100 years of age. He's not really, but he sometimes he feels it, sometimes he doesn't. And as long as I can remember, whenever I've thought of Peter, he would play every weekend when he was competitive, and he would play every Sunday with the others, the mates, the boys, and he would play full on. There is no quit. And it's just built into their makeup, and it says an awful lot. It's another way to keep healthy. We're talking about maintaining good health. We're talking about especially with the recent tragedies with Shane Warne, 52 years of age. Who would have thought that we would lose a champion like that at such an early age? But these are some of the battles that are being fought at the moment, and we've had a very tough couple of years, mentally and physically. People have been challenged by being cooped up, and challenged that that some of their career has been impacted by decisions beyond their reach, beyond their capability to control, and that takes a real assessment. It takes a real positive outlook to get on top of it and say, okay, it's a challenge. We've addressed it. It's a bit like being in a storm. If we're on a yacht or a sailing ship, what do you do in a storm? Well, you batten down the hatches, don't you? You don't set the spinnaker and say, let's ride this baby out. No. You trim the sails. You take stock of your possible safety places to get to, an island that's not necessarily remote and lost, and one that has great Wi-Fi is always recommended. So if you're going to go on a remote island, make sure it has great Wi-Fi, okay? So
you've lost me, George. you've gone adrift.
It's been that sort of show. You've taken me from my comfort Thursday and you've put me in horror Wednesday. All for the sake of making sure that Preston and the Socceroos have space. Yeah? I have a couple of mates that we can never be in the same city at the same time because the cities just ain't big enough for us. And it's a bit like that. Look, tomorrow promises to be a remarkable day on about 50 different levels. It could be a day of history. It could be a day of tragedy. No, it will be a day of history because one way or the other, the boys win and do something that lifts the country, or they slip up against a terrific opponent. But can I just remind everyone, it is sport. It's not a tragedy. Nor am I making a bed for them to get an easy out. Some of the greatest football nations in this world of ours have failed to make the World Cup. And we're talking France, we're talking...
Italy, recently.
Yeah, very Italy. And others.
Nick Tabana does not like to be reminded of that.
And Portugal may not make it. So, I mean, these are countries that are steeped in football. Yeah. So understand that so much of life is cyclical. So much of sport is cyclical. You watch your teams come and go, unless, of course, they're Manchester United, in which case they just spend so much money they can't possibly be outside the top 10. or the top 5. Oh, sorry, top 4. Damn. I always had them where I wanted them.
I'm not sure Manchester United is the best example of stable success.
Well, no, they've been stable. They just haven't won.
That's true.
They've been extraordinarily stable, and they've got a tremendous brand. In iconic terms, which are the biggest brands in the world right now? Go on.
Well, you're wearing one of them.
Yeah, I am.
There you go, Nike.
And it's only because they just got out there from day one and created a space for themselves, and they made a statement. Let's just do it. Yeah, and it's worked forever and a day.
So back to the Socceroos, World Cup qualifying.
Yep.
This has drawn a little bit of controversy
and fire. Yeah, and why is that, young Joshua?
Well, the Socceroos have attempted to call up some late injury cover, and they have included Ryan McGowan and Alex Wilkinson, 37 years young, Alex Wilkinson, in the squad.
Tremendous
for
player.
These two big games against Japan and Saudi Arabia.
I see where you're going with this. You're going to ask me the question about young Curtis Good, who's been very good for City and would have been very good had he been available. But he wasn't on the list of 50.
So this took me a little while to work out how the administrative process goes down. But this is a long list that is a couple of weeks before the final squad announcement. Football Australia sends around this list and basically puts the clubs on notice saying we might call up your player. It's a FIFA-mandated window, so therefore the clubs have no say in the matter. If the player gets called up and wants to play for the national team, they can go, and whether they're missing club games or not. And the A-League still doesn't observe international windows because of the fixture backlog that we're still chasing our tail on. All those games cancelled due to COVID, just had no way. And it's a late season start as well.
Correct.
Had really no way to incorporate an international break this year.
These windows will be addressed next year?
That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
So hopefully we won't run into this club versus country problem again.
Okay, so raise the question, the elephant in the room. Go on, ask the question.
Having not been included on the long list of 50 initially, but we know that Socceroos first teamers are dropping like flies at the moment. And we've lost so many players through injury, through COVID, close contacts, et cetera, that they've turned to Curtis Good as injury cover for these two games, and Melbourne City have turned around and said you can't have him because he wasn't on the list. Not on the list of 50. So whether that's an administrative oversight from Football Australia, not including a player that you might call up in the end, maybe he was left off by mistake. Perhaps they didn't expect to go this deep on the depth chart, but largely it's been the midfielders and not the defenders that they've lost. So
Twitter's had a field day. It's been a free kick.
But
for
should
Twitter.
Melbourne City, for the good of the national team, for the good of Australia in this torrid time that we're in, with two do or die games before the playoffs potentially, should they drop everything and say Curtis Good, go off and sit on the bench for the Socceroos in case Trent Sainsbury or Milos Degenek go down?
In case.
Because he probably won't play. Even if he's in the squad, he probably doesn't play. The fingers crossed, our two first-choice centre-backs make it through.
So why has the club taken such a huge hit in the last 24 hours?
Well, because I think...
If he's not going to play... Look, if he's going to play, I think there's a slightly different decision to be had. I would address it this way. If he was the first-choice centre-half, right? Or
became the first choice.
Became this. I would say
we're only one injury away, to be fair.
All right, but at the moment he's not chosen, is he?
No, he wouldn't be in the.
Nor was he chosen.
He wouldn't be in the 11, even despite the wave of injuries we've had.
So, I'm thinking there's a very interesting question. Logically, if he was first choice, I would love to think that Melbourne City would see fit to find a way to say, you know what, extraordinary circumstances, we would let him play. And I'm sure Curtis would put his hand up and play. But he's not the first choice. He wasn't the second choice. He wasn't the third. He wasn't on the 50. So an administrative faux pas, perhaps, but he wasn't in the 50. So suddenly things have transpired. You know, as they say in the storybooks, shit happens. And at the moment, we are now all looking for excuses. My view is there are enough good players in that squad. It's about understanding that against the current betting, Japan looks to be all over it. They may as well not turn up. They've already got the result. Well, no, they haven't. The game's got to be played. Anything can happen. As far as I'm concerned, a tremendous opportunity to create history. These are the moments when you can do magical things. And sometimes a serial pest can lurk. Look, it's...
Given the stakes at play in this game, though, surely
I've
City
told you
have
about
to...
the stakes. It's a game of football. It's a game of sport. As the marvellous Ash Barty has just reminded us all, she's just retired at 25. And she could have won another half a dozen tournaments, played for another 5 years. But I think deep down, one, she's looking at the Matildas and thinking, Sam Kerr, I'm there. Or she's thinking about a family. And I think that's an exciting thing. Whatever she wants to do, bless her. But if you want to talk Matildas, we can make that happen. So I've addressed that element of it. Ideally, it would be if he was the first choice centre back or a senior player in the squad. I'd say, yeah, okay, the club, can and should put its hand up. But I don't think that's the case, and it wasn't the case. So fair play to City, who are getting ready to play Brisbane Roar as we speak. That won't be easy. Brisbane Roar had a win the other day. They are starting to look like the side that you said, at the beginning of the competition. They've got that look about them. Moon's got them playing a style of football. I think they're the darkie. Well, hey, if they are the dark horse in the competition and are just starting to gather themselves, they've got enough games up their sleeve. How many games do they have to play to make up? I think one City have 19 games I think they've played, and Brisbane Roar have maybe played,
15.
15. So 4 games to
Still,
make up.
they've made me wait to see any glimpse of the team I thought they'd be, George. But
they say good things come to those who wait.
But that's the point, is that Curtis Good would miss 3 Melbourne City games if he was to be included in the squad, which is a big sacrifice.
It is a big sacrifice.
To have your first choice defender missing 4 games against Brisbane, Macarthur and Wellington. He's unlikely to make it back for Wellington.
You and I talked about the Macarthur game, and I told you how surprised I was about how big they are physically and how and what a combative side Macarthur looks.
So that's probably a game that you want Curtis Good in the team.
Absolutely want him there. And I wish everyone luck. I don't want injuries to play a role. You want the boys to play. And look, the season has had enough. And already we're seeing questions being asked of the AFL. This mighty competition that does no wrong. The first week of the tribunal, and already there are 2 decisions that the rest of the country cannot understand. So, it seems like we're creating sport in this day and age just for Twitter.
Just for drama, you think?
Just for drama.
But, yes.
What would you have them do? What would you have City do right now? Saying what you've said, explaining it how you explained it, that he wasn't on the 50, he wasn't a first choice, second choice, third choice. What would you demand of them today with tomorrow's game almost upon us?
I honestly, I've thought about it. I've gone back and forth, but I think international football has to come first, and everything that we do should be in service of the national team's success in terms of developing players, in terms of, the flow-on benefits of Australia qualifying versus not are massive. Yep. So even if it only increases our chances of qualification by 0.5%, knowing that Curtis Good would be in reserve should Sainsbury or Degenek, test positive for COVID, which is a live possibility given the amount of cases in camp, or go down through injury as we saw Harry Souttar do, knock on wood, that doesn't happen again, but as we saw him go down in the last qualifier on home soil, we don't want a repeat of that, but if it happens, even if it's only a tiny marginal gain in the chances of us progressing automatically to the World Cup, I think it's worth City missing a central defender for 3 games.
How old are you?
I'm 27.
Okay. When's your 28th?
December.
You're a Sagittarian, are you? Or a Capricorn?
Yes, Sagittarius.
Many happy returns in December. We're both Sagittarians. The reason I ask that question is because you're a young man with a fantastic future in the game, and you've given me enormous opportunity to sit back and just listen with pride and enjoy what you're doing and how you're developing as a professional. I think that's just mighty stuff. I just want to ask you that sometimes in life, setbacks, major setbacks can be major recorrection points. And the game at the moment has got so many people talking it down, so many different people with different, points of view. And the game, as we've touched on a number of occasions in the past, the country that I always look to as a working model for where we should be striving to be is France. And the French have one entity that runs the game, and every city, every centre of excellence they have throughout France does what? It has one simple job: to deliver to the French the best possible players they can.
And we have them to Clairefontaine,
we have layer upon layer upon layer in this country of different stakeholders. We may well need a major course recorrection, and the only way it might have to be is through something as tough as this. For the game to go forward, we need one body running the game, with everyone else subservient. There are people out there who will not wear that. I've been watching this game for a lifetime. I've only wanted one thing from day one: for the sport to grow and blossom as it has done around the world. There is absolutely no reason. We are our biggest, anchors that are holding it at bay, but in the wrong place. I want that umbilical cord cut. I want all those anchors jettisoned, and I want us to think, we've got a Football Australia. Well, let it do its job. I know it's a tough thing to say. I know that there'll be people out there saying, George, what are you saying? Well, I've watched Sir Arthur George, John Constantine, Sam Papasavis, Jim Bayuti before that. They've all been people who loved the game and wanted the best for Australia. And I've seen at every level, and I've been close to a great many of them, and I've heard, both at dinner and lunch and in private meetings, just how difficult it is and how unwieldy the game can be. Well, it's time, maybe, that we steady the ship. And if we're going to go forward as one, then let's do it in a manner that's proper, that is fit for purpose, and allows so many tremendous people who are in this game, and there are a great, we talked to Gary Cole, we talked to a number of others who love the game, and would love to be, participants in it. In other words, and they should all be. We should all be putting our hand up to help the game grow, male and female. We have a tremendous and amazing opportunity tomorrow night to create history, or to create a moment when we've got to hit the pause button and take a good long, how they say in the AFL, a good hard look at ourselves.
That's true. Maybe it could be the prompting for a bit of a review. I honestly,
you would hate to see it.
While I think obviously I think it should be up to Curtis, first of all. If he wants to go, I think he should be allowed to go. Okay. And I think he would if he was given the choice.
Yes, of course.
Because everyone wants to represent their country.
Absolutely.
And I doubt that Curtis Good is thanking his club for this decision.
No,
he'd probably be quite annoyed about it. Because
he would, because you don't want to be seen to be shirking an enormous opportunity. Yeah, and I'm sure it's not the case.
Having said that, if we don't qualify, and we're probably not going to at this point, I think if look at the betting markets, it doesn't favour us, as you mentioned earlier. So it's not going to be because we didn't have Curtis Good as a backup centre back. It's going to be because we made a rod for our own back earlier in the qualification campaign, and I don't think the narrative that's building that the clubs aren't cooperating with the national team, that Arnie's going to lose because he doesn't have his best players available because of this unprecedented wave of COVID and injuries. Never should have been in this position in the first place, where you were demanding wins against the two best teams in the group in the last two match days to secure our place. This campaign lost its way much, much earlier in games against Oman, against Vietnam, against China, where the side was unable to control the game, unable to keep the ball, unable to generate sufficient goal-scoring chances. And I think that in itself, whether we qualify or not, even if we pull off a miracle, should provoke a deeper introspection, a good hard long look in the mirror, as you say, George. Because are we developing the sorts of players who are going to help address our weaknesses in the national team? Are we developing the coaches that will have, that will be bold enough and brave enough and also tactically adept enough to craft the kinds of teams that can play more progressive football?
Stephen Darby said in a recent tweet, and Konvitsianis has said it time and time again, we're not teaching the youngsters to think about being resourceful. We're not telling them to work at their game, to be as technically proficient as possible. That's not part of the early training. It's all about a particular system and trying to fit it in. And yet, I heard a former Brisbane Roar player, a Dutchman no less, talk about how the Dutch these days, the juniors, it's demanded of them that they learn to be resourceful, to be problem solvers on the pitch from very early on. And I'm fascinated to hear that sort of talk coming from someone like that who's played in this country, because a great many of our stars of the past, that's how they learnt. They learned from very young how to be resourceful, how to take on different bodied opponents and cope. I didn't run into a 6'5" guy until I was 18. No rubbish. Yeah, they had guys who were 6'3", 6'2".
You're talking about independent thinkers on the pitch.
Yeah.
I think we do produce some of those players.
But not in the numbers that we need.
Not in the numbers that we need. And also, when we do find those talents, they're often held back by risk-averse coaches who are scared to put them in the game, because if they're making their own decisions, they're not necessarily listening to everything the coach says. And if they don't listen to what the coach says, maybe they'll give the ball away, maybe they'll concede a goal. And I think that is the biggest barrier with what I see in the A-League at the moment, how it connects to the Socceroos. Players of invention and players of creativity who are not given the keys, so to speak. And we talked about Bruno Fornaroli getting the call up. Amazing story.
Yeah, it's a great story.
Amazing story. But an A-League team gave Bruno Fornaroli the license to do what he did because he was a pricey Uruguayan import of great pedigree. And you wouldn't necessarily see a club push all their chips in the middle of the table on a young player to play as their number 9 up front. Usually we turn to a foreign import for that kind of thing. Usually we give our local players the more physical jobs, central defenders, fullbacks, wingers, run up and down the touchline, give me some energy. Yeah. And then when we actually need a bit of cutting edge and a bit of creativity, we look elsewhere for an Argentinian or a Brazilian or a Frenchman.
Do you remember that a season or two where City had just delivered Bruno Fornaroli. They had just reached out and grabbed a Frenchman, and it wasn't Florian Berenguer. It was that young swagger.
Harry Neville?
Neville, yeah. And he came, and Ross McCormick was also in the mix, I think, at the time.
I think he came slightly later.
Slightly later. Okay. Do you remember some of the early chatter on Twitter and other social media outlets? Bruno played in Greece, couldn't score a goal. We are notorious. We are notoriously fickle. What Bruno discovered was that in this league, his style of play, his smarts, and his ability to hold the ball up and let others in played right to his strengths. And he was quite something. He was a revelation, especially in that first year when he started to do things. And Neville came and gave him yet another outlet. And there was nothing more exciting at Amy to watch them, maraud, just treat the opposition as welcome country. They came down from both sides. I can remember a particular game. I think it might even have been against Victory. It was a derby, and we saw Rabona from Bruno, and the crowd just lit up. And
there's no question.
And I say to people time and time again, we are so quick to judge. Absolutely so quick to judge.
And there's no question that the value that the likes of Bruno and Neville and Fernando Brandan, for example, flair players brought in from outside can add to the competition and can draw crowds when, people start to see what they're capable of. But in some ways that conflicts with our other goals for what the A-League can and should be. And in a way, Graham Arnold, who's now crying poor a lot of the time about the lack of minutes for young Australian players when he's trying to, he was trying to manage the Oilers until recently, trying to find the talent and seeing much of it stymied on the bench. But then you look at what he did when he was in charge of Sydney FC, and he was guilty of many of the same things.
Yes, he was.
With the likes of Ninkovic and Mijajevski and Bobo being the players who were given the licence.
Think about this, though. You've been anointed to be the coach of Sydney, and you've got your bosses saying we want wins, right? Very hard to be, as you say, bold. And there's only one guy who's done it really with the sort of acclaim, maybe two. No, I was going to say Popovic. You could almost add Popovic to that, but he hasn't been that bold. He plays his players that he's, worked on and their seasoned and they're mature types.
He's never been one to blood too many.
The only person I can remember who's done it consistently and did it with rare acclaim was Ange. And you saw how Ange was treated. And in fact, there's a special, I think, on, is it Optus tonight or tomorrow? Might be tonight, where he's talking to Mark Schwarzer, and he said, look, I got more acclaim, more support, more respect from my Japanese audience, than I did from anybody in Australia. And that's really sad. That's really sad. I can tell you from the people who loved Ange, he's had nothing but support, right? But there are a whole bunch of others who, typical, because Ange was a Victorian, and we have this extraordinary problem in this country. We're parochial to the very nth degree. And it was seen during the height of COVID. During the height of COVID, we had a bunch of premiers playing their own game, running their own rules, and deciding how everybody else was going to live, which was appalling. You don't call yourself Australia if all you're talking about is Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia.
I think in a lot of ways it comes back to...
Tassie, must never forget Tassie.
I think in a lot of ways it does come back to your priorities and who you're answering to, as you say. And I think sometimes those...
It's upside down.
I think in Australian football it should be... I don't know how you can mandate it, to be honest.
You can't.
But I would like to see more coaches being given obvious KPIs to introduce young players into the team and see them flourish as a judge of their performance and not just where they finish on the table. And
it would require a national director to get a directive from the top to say, we've employed you to instill this ambition in our coaches, and that's what we should be instructing to.
And in a way, it has to come back to a self-interest from the clubs in terms of
self-interest. You want to back self-interest?
Well, no. But
okay.
The only way that you're going to incentivize this is it's what's in it for us. And I think what is in it for the clubs is potentially transfer fees down the line for the players who do excel. And that's something that Adelaide are starting to get their heads around and starting to make the most of. Not City to an extent with Nathaniel Atkinson and others.
And Connor Metcalf.
Who's going to St. Pauli.
They've had their success with Azani and with Aaron Moy, who was the first of that City group that really went and made a difference. And indeed, we saw him blossom in what was a tremendous time at Brighton Hove Albion.
But those are the only two clubs that I can see. It's part of their priority behind the scenes to develop young players for export, if you will, which would have a positive flow-on effect.
I
for
have a
national
sneaking
team
suspicion,
programs.
if you listen carefully to John Tsatsimas last week when we had him on the program, who's the outgoing CEO of the Western Sydney Wanderers. I think they are pitching that tent. I think they are going to be pumping that sort of philosophy into their makeup. I think Rudan is there, yes, to bring results, but also to give the West and its youth a real outlet. And I think you're going to be seeing the cream of the Western youth, male and female, in the best possible training conditions. As you see, they're building some wonderful things. That may well be the next step. And of course, Western United, as we've heard, although they've got a long way to go because they're still going to build that training setup, which they've now announced. And interestingly, they're getting ever closer to that stadium at Tarneet, which has been like a terrible anvil around their neck. It's been dragging them down. So depending on who wants to run the commentary, it's either a bold and brave decision or it's just a lot of hot air. Look, for me, we have some major questions to answer. Tomorrow, it's looming very quickly now. It's Japan. And what a Japanese side is going to be at Stadium Australia tomorrow. The Japanese have been blossoming. We're seeing more and more Japanese players, and we're even seeing Chinese players announcing themselves in the EPL and other competitions around the world. And that's tremendous. But that's been coming for, 20 years, hasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, Japan seems to have a longer term.
Insular.
Seems to have a longer term plan for.
But they've got a plan. At least they've got a plan. When the Guardians of the Galaxy speak of having a plan, it's the real plan. Look, we need a plan, but we need a focus.
I think also just the volume of players that Japan is able to produce with 3 professional divisions.
It's one thing to have a plan. It's another thing to have the infrastructure that will allow you to incorporate and make that plan come alive. I think we still have too many roadblocks, too many, what do they call them? Not so much roadblocks, but what are those things we have in the street that slow us down?
Speed bumps.
Speed bumps. We have a number of speed bumps strategically placed across Australia that are causing us not to be able to run at speed. And the AIS concept to me, the idea of a major, fantastic academy to blood and to fine tune that top crop of men and women, that's something that needs to be revisited and reintroduced. We hear if it's not making money, then it's dragging us down. No, I think that in this particular case, if it's creating a marvellous crop of talent, then whatever it costs, it's the sort of cost that you have to have. It's that sort of investment that you need to make and must make. So for me, they're the important things that, have to be addressed. And what are we going to see tomorrow? What's your gut feeling? You're don't tell me you're a betting man and you've looked at the latest betting and gone, it's all over, Rover. Why turn up at Stadium Australia?
Look, I'm not optimistic. I could see a draw, but that's no good for the Socceroos.
Okay.
So
an honourable draw means naught.
Pretty much.
I
think Japan will be more than happy to take the draw away. Obviously they'll be even happier with 3 points, but to stop Australia from getting the 3 points will do them quite nicely when it comes to the qualification. So
for those who have just entered the conversation and wondering what we're talking about, how many points does Australia need in the next 2 games?
6.
6. Not much, is it?
Unless some other results fall extremely favourably for us, which I don't think they will. Looking at the Japanese squad, they're not without their own injury issues with some unavailabilities. 2 out of the 3 Celtic players are unavailable. For Hashi, no
nice
good.
try, Ange. Thanks very much for that.
Well, he hasn't given us Rogic either, so...
Ouch.
So, I don't think they're too keen to have their players jetting halfway across the world because Scotland doesn't have an international break either. They share that in common with the A-League. So, no Rogic for us, no Daisen Maeda and no Kyogo Furuhashi for the Japanese, although Ryo Hatate is in the squad. He hasn't been starting for the Japanese national team lately, much to the frustration of the Blue Samurai supporters, I understand. Yuya Sako, the big target man, you might have seen playing for Vissel Kobe against Melbourne Victory, has gone down through injury, and Hiroki Sakai, the a veteran fullback who's half German and half Japanese, a very distinctive looking guy.
Was the victory
he's
game
no good either.
Was the victory game in the AFC clash a couple of weeks ago, a week and a half or so ago? Was that a preview of tomorrow night?
There were a few players, but as I say, Sakai and Osaka, the 2 of the Vissel Kobe internationals, are not going to be present. So not so much. They're actually missing. So the Japanese at least have their first choice midfield available, as well as Junya Ito, who scored that late winner against Australia in Japan. The winger with the very bright dyed hair, who you might remember, gave Aziz Bayic an absolute bath that night. So I'm a little worried about Junya Ito, but they've got a very strong team. No Tomiyasu from Arsenal either, which is a big blow.
Okay. How many Victory players are likely to roll up and play tomorrow?
I'm not sure any of them will start.
You don't think Falami will play?
He won't start. He might play off the bench.
Right,
he might.
He was an impact player.
He was only brought in again as an injury replacement. I don't know. No word as to whether he was in the 50 or Victory let him go. Haven't inquired, but it'll be interesting to know. Nick D'Agostino, of course, is in the mix as well. But honestly, I can see Bruno Fornaroli playing against Japan. It's either him or McLaren. I think it's down to. I mean, Mitch Duke conceivably could start, but I think he's better as an impact player off the bench to provide a bit of chaos when you need to sling a few crosses into the box.
Speaking of games, what did you make of last week's derby between Victory and City?
It seems to be the game that nobody wants to lose. It was a couple of consecutive draws.
You thought they both played to draw, do you?
Not necessarily, but there was a little bit of a handbrake on, I think, because neither coach was willing to take that extra level of risk in the last 15 minutes, I didn't feel, to really put the pressure on. What I did find interesting from that game was the way that Victory had prepared meticulously to target Melbourne City's use of their fullbacks.
Correct.
So if you look at the goal that Victory scored, it's Scott Jamieson stepping into midfield when the ball's on the opposite side.
Again,
which is
a quickly taken free kick.
Well, I mean, they gave it away.
Again, a quickly taken free kick.
But if you see when Victory win the ball and get there, it's immediately obvious that Marco Rojas is motoring towards the space that Jamieson has vacated.
Correct. That's
and
exactly
even though it comes from the other side, it's obviously Rojas
and this
comes
is
in
the same
unmarked.
Rojas. This is the same Rojas that the New Zealand All Whites didn't want to have in their squad.
Yeah, interesting that. I haven't been hugely convinced by his performances this season. He's lacked a bit of confidence.
Look, if you ever want to get Rojas fit and firing, you just play him against City. Because he seems to grow. It's as if someone has bet him. Must be, I don't know if it's a family friend or maybe a girlfriend that's got in his ear, you can't play against City, and he just steps up. I've never seen him as anything as not potent. He's always been a danger. He's always been there to put the ball away, and I've hated every moment. But you can't deny people who are talented.
He has a reputation for scoring in derbies now.
Oh, you think?
I think it's some
Really?
line in the song.
I would never have said that.
I think there's a line in the song.
He loves it. He
loves the victory, hates the heart.
Oh, he has no heart, that boy. He's a New Zealander. He's got no heart. Look, I think he's a tremendous player. It was interesting that the New Zealanders didn't pick him in their team. So I'm surprised, but I wouldn't be surprised to hear, and I have no way of checking this, if Popovic had not made a phone call to New Zealand going, listen, I need him, okay? Thanks very much, and put the phone down. Because he's like that. He loves stepping in and creating mischief where he can. And can I just say, I don't think he's addressed or answered any of the questions about Bill Pappas. How lucky has he been? He's skirted all the media, came in late to the season, just as the season started, and no media outlet has asked him about it. I'm wondering if there's a 60 Minutes reporter pursuing him because they've done a little expose on Bill Pappas. You know,
I think 60 Minutes are only interested in the foreign owners. So.
Oh, of course, that's right. The sports washing. No, the sports washing, which has raised a few questions in England. What happens to Chelsea, my friend?
What happens to them?
Does Candy buy it?
I'm not sure. An
extraordinary situation where now governments are telling businesses you can't own this and you can't have that, and more importantly, you can't access your money. Very interesting times.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting the sanctions. I have to say, I was very surprised when they.
Listen, Arsenal, one of Arsenal's owners, made sure he got his super yacht out of Malta and on its way to Turkey. Seems to me that any port of call. But if it's Turkish, it's even better because Erdogan, their president, has a particularly fine hotline straight to Vladimir Putin.
I was actually listening to the great Irish sports journalist, very dry wit, Ken Early, who we've had on a couple of times. And his comment on the whole situation was if Chelsea, the football club, was somehow seaworthy, it'd be in the Maldives by now.
How beautiful.
Out of extradition territory.
Absolutely. Beyond extradition.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, we don't have an extradition duty or
unfortunately, they couldn't fit Chelsea on a boat. So in London, it remains.
Mind you, have you seen the boat that belongs to Roman Abramovich? It is $800 million. Sorry, $800 million, about £400 million. That's some vessel. You can't get 27 players on there, you sure?
I can't fit the stadium either. Unfortunately, it's not a portable building. But they've got a few contracts expiring, including Antonio Rudiger. So if the sanctions aren't lifted in time, they literally will not be able to re-sign him because they cannot sign contract
Will they be allowed to play in the final of the European Championship if they make it?
I think they will. I don't think there's been any indication from UEFA that they're going to ban Russian-owned teams.
Listen very carefully. You don't tell your enemy what you're going to do. You don't give them a warning. You make sure you strike when it's most convenient. Thank you very much.
I mean, UEFA's already banned Russian-based clubs.
Poland was supposed to be playing Russia. That's been called off.
Yes, so Poland has been given the forfeit win.
Wow.
So,
Incredible
It was
times.
sort of predictable once Poland said they wouldn't play them, and the Czech Republic and Sweden both said they wouldn't play them. So either FIFA was going to let Russia automatically qualify for the World Cup, and then if all the other nations followed suit, potentially win the World Cup by default, or they had to kick them out. So
Yeah, no, it was lay down misère. There was only one answer, one decision to be made, and it's been made. Extraordinary one, because FIFA are not renowned for making such bold decisions. They
had to be bullied into it.
And yes, and UEFA too. They also came to the party late. What have you made of the hour of football? We started with the outstanding news that Ash Barty is a contender for the Matildas, if she wishes. We're happy to fast-track her into the side. And this is all, of course, trying to preempt the AFL from wanting to use her in the AFLW competition.
Well, if I remember correctly, she was actually filmed playing cricket in the airport, waiting for a delayed flight.
Mate, have I told you she's a brilliant cricketer?
She's...
And Australia, of course, have won 6 in a row or 7 in a row.
So what I'm saying is it might not be the AFL we have to fend off for her services.
So you think it's the cricket?
It might be Cricket Australia.
But it's if it's cricket, not a problem. I'm happy to carry her kit bag as long as she's available for the Matildas, even if it's a walk on. Ash Barty, love you. Would love you even more if you were supportive of them. And
maybe she can have a word to Elise Perry and see if we could bring her back into the fold as well.
Now, wouldn't that be something? Could you imagine? Talk about weaponry. Okay, so then we talked about the two Melbourne clubs that were struggling to come to terms with the name. What's in a name? Well, clearly, if you're a zebra, you don't want Moreland to access it, and you don't want Juventus to access it.
I just hope
Brunswick
the legal case doesn't draw the attention of the Turin-based Juventus, who might come in and sue the both of them. A countersuit.
Speaking of Juventus, what have you made of Dybala being told when we don't need you anymore?
It's unthinkable. I can't wrap my head around it, to be honest.
Does he go to Spurs?
Well, Antonio Conte and him had a good relationship, did they not?
Yeah, they did.
So
does he go there?
I think he'd be great there.
How would you use him? Where would you use him in the current setup?
He would probably play the Kulusevski role.
Hey, I'll tell you what.
But Kulusevski's been okay.
2 young boys have come to that club, and the initial response was, Kulusevski, 20-year-old, and Betancourt. Haven't they been mighty? Dejan Kulusevski looks to me like born to play Premier League. And Betancourt, how cool is that guy? What a great practitioner of the game.
Well, I like the Uruguayan.
He looks
midfielders and defenders. They make some in terms of the players with grit and also I guess big game smarts.
Look, Betancourt caught me out the first week or two because he kept losing the ball, but he had made the adjustments by the end of the game. So first half, he'd lost the ball 3-4 times.
He's a smart player.
Again, I saw him the other night in what was an important game for Spurs against West Ham, and he was just as advertised. International Uruguayan, playing with style and vigour and smarts. There was some couple of passes he laid on. He's starting to show us a creativity that our midfield at Tottenham has lacked all year. You saw the occasional pass from Winks, and everyone would go, oh, wonderful, but not nearly consistent enough. And this young man, Rodrigo Betancourt, is doing it now almost every game. And Kulusevski, to me, has done something I didn't think was imaginable half a dozen weeks ago. He's made Lucas Moura an impact player off the bench.
And that might be the best role for Lucas Moura these days.
It may well be. But what a couple of additions. If Paratici does more of that in the off-season, hey, bring on 23, I say. And, we might have to visit London and see what's going on.
Before we go,
what have you got?
Real Madrid 0, Barcelona 4.
Wow.
Did you watch it?
You see, again, A month or so ago, if I'd run that line past you, you would have gone, George, another senior moment. It would have been quite seriously ludicrous to say, but they've been mighty, aided by, I might add, by the fact that Messi left. Everyone's saying, "Oh, if he hadn't left." No. For this to happen, Messi had to leave because suddenly the money that they needed to bring in others and to pay them, right, was absolutely locked up around Messi leaving. So even by leaving the club, he's still helping Barcelona.
And even then, with the wage controls, Aubameyang had to take a huge pay cut to join Barcelona.
Oh, that's hurt him, hasn't it? He's now buoyant. He's now showing all and sundry that his brand is Barcelona. And, he's looked anything but an Arsenal player. And yet, his departure from Arsenal has helped Arsenal. I haven't seen the Gunners look this potent. It hurts me to say it, but since he left, Arsenal have actually kicked on and look a really impressive unit, and I don't know if we can beat them.
You know what's interesting about Xavi turning to Aubameyang is a few years ago in an interview, he was still at Al Sadd in Qatar, and he was asked about his old club's rumoured transfer targets. He actually questioned whether Aubameyang would fit the Barcelona mould. He said he was talking about Mane and Aubameyang. He said they can kill you in open space, but Barcelona need players who know how to move in small spaces. And I'm thinking about a player who would adapt to Barcelona, and it's not easy to find one. But it seems as if Aubameyang's just fine. Thank you very much.
But it also tells you exactly what talk is. It's cheap. At the end of the day, the public response to a question was that, and it fitted a beautiful interview and at the time looked really potent and accurate. At the end of the day, he's using him brilliantly. And the player has grown a foot, and suddenly he's fit enough to do that backflip and that super leap, the pretend, Sam Kerr jump that he wasn't doing at Arsenal. And it seems to me that just as Messi helped, Barca reach this stage, Aubameyang's departure from Arsenal has lifted the Gunners, and I hate that. When do we play that postponed game? Is it played at the Emirates or is it being played at Hotspur?
Good question. I don't have that information.
Because to me, wherever we play them, we're in trouble. I think that's going to be the game that decides if we're in the four or not.
So the game against Spurs has not been rescheduled yet. It's not on the fixture list that I'm looking at. We're yet to find out when that one will happen. But the other player I wanted to mention who I've been really impressed with at Barcelona recently is another Uruguayan, Ronald Araujo.
Oh, what an insight, eh? And he's scoring goals. He's getting into position
against every other member of the top 5 in Spain, I think.
There you go.
I think that was the stat. He's definitely scored against Atletico as well and against Sevilla. So, I mean, he's definitely a big game player. That's what I say about the Uruguayans. They have the sense of the occasion, and he's learning to play the Barcelona way. He wasn't, when he first arrived, I don't think, the kind of defender in the PK mould who's so comfortable on the ball, or a converted midfielder as they've often played there. He's a pure central defender with that kind of tackling and recovery speed and aerial ability, but he's slowly learning to be more confident bringing the ball out from defence, and he's being well taught about where his passing options are, and I think all of the pre-training rondos are doing him good with the little one-touch passing. I think he's improving in that department, so he could be a world-class central defender in a couple of years.
What did you make of Ancelotti's hands up saying it was my fault?
Well, I think he's right. I mean,
nothing to do with the players, just him.
Well, of course, there's always something to do with the players.
How many were missing? Benzema, and who else?
It was the left back Ferland Mendy. I thought they made a silly mistake because David Alaba is playing central defence now, and that's his position. And I guess you don't want to break up your central defensive partnership. Yep. But in this specific instance, playing Nacho Fernandez at left back, where he was going to get torched by Adama Traore and Aubameyang and whoever else drifted out to that flank, was a misstep. And I think Alaba could have just thought back to when he used to be the best in the world in that position and shifted across and swapped places. And the other puzzling selection decision was trying to reinvent the wheel and play Luka Modric as a false nine when you've got many tens of millions of euros of striker in Luka Jovic sitting on the bench. And apparently he's persona non grata at Real Madrid. Even when Benzema's out, they won't give him a run.
Just go back to the other player that you mentioned, Adama Traore. Couldn't get a regular role at Wolves.
Oh, he played pretty often.
Spurs wanted him, right? He's gone to Barca. He's a beast. So it's how you use them. It's got to be, now we're learning, now we're really seeing. If your eye is good, it's not so much the players, it's how they fit into systems. And some systems allow them to really be quite something. You see them.
And the knock on Adama was that he never fit into a system.
Well.
And apparently it's been proven wrong.
He looks like they've made him a velvet suit and he's wearing it with great style. And let me tell you, he looks like he's ready to just tear defences apart. He's a huge unit and a tremendously gifted player, but they've always said, his first touch is not good enough. He doesn't finish. Well, what's he done for Barca? He's helped them start and he's helped them finish. Just tremendous stuff. Just tremendous stuff.
Well, I think they'll be singing about this one for a while. And Real Madrid, he brought out a special black commemorative kit for the game. I don't know whether the fans who bought those will be, wearing them. They might use them to scrub the car or something. Yeah.
Okay, so let's
have to banish that memory quick smart.
Let's get your because we're going to review this next week. Your tip for tomorrow night: Stadium Australia, Japan, Australia, or Australia, Japan.
I think it'll be an honourable draw. I'm going 1-1.
Okay. I'm going a 1-0 win to Australia against the odds.
Wow.
Yep. Scored by, you name it.
You tell me.
Bruno Fornaroli.
Of course.
Off the bench. Could you imagine?
Free kick, maybe?
Well, why not? Why not? Let me tell you, the Japanese will be reviewing some tapes if he gets on.
Who's this guy?
Let's have a look. Exactly right. Does he speak Australian? Exciting times. Brisbane Roar playing City tonight. What's your gut feeling?
I think City can get the job done.
Okay.
I think they've had a few issues defensively,
and they're missing 4 players.
That's true. Oh, you're swaying me a little bit.
See what happens?
Yeah. I look, Brisbane Roar, I've tried to back them in this season. They've let me down time and again. So I'm going to tip against them and maybe I'll play a bit of reverse psychology. And
I'm saying a draw.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go.
I can see that. Melbourne Victory playing Western United tonight as well.
Okay. I can pick this. Not a problem at all.
1-0 to Western?
It's a draw.
Okay.
I just think it's that important. Johnny has got to draw a line in the sand and say, no. They got pummeled by Sydney.
That's true.
And Sydney looked awfully good. And what did we see? We saw the grand players of Sydney over the last 3 or 4 years who've been dynamic with the opening goal combo. That was a beautiful goal. That would have beaten in most sides. And that was the sort of puncture that really affected the confidence of Western United because they don't like conceding goals, and that hurt them. They didn't see that coming.
No.
So interesting times.
I'm going to go 1-0 to Western.
Oh,
I reckon they can turn it around.
Okay. All right.
And no daggers or Falami for victory, remember? So their firepower is a little limited tonight.
Okay. All right. Well, that's our program, State of Our Football Nation on FNR. George Danikian and Josh Parrish. Catch you next week. Actually, we won't. You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR.